There comes a moment in your life when you get tired. Not tired because you worked too hard. Not tired because you dreamed too big. You get tired because you kept giving your heart to people who only came to take pieces of it away. And one day you wake up and realize that some people are not confused about how they treat you. They know exactly what they are doing. They interrupt your peace. They laugh at your pain. They test your patience. They disrespect your kindness. And every time you forgive them without changing your boundaries, they learn one dangerous lesson, that they can keep doing it. I want you to hear me tonight. Being a good person does not mean becoming a weak person. Some of you were raised to believe that silence is always noble, that enduring mistreatment makes you mature, that constantly understanding other people makes you spiritual. But let me tell you something powerful tonight. There is nothing holy about allowing people to destroy your spirit. Some people are not looking for love. They are looking for permission to use you. Permission to insult you. Permission to walk over your heart with dirty shoes while you stand there explaining why they should stop. And the reason toxic people continue disrespecting good people is because good people keep explaining instead of deciding. Oh, yes. You keep giving speeches to people who already understood your pain the first time. You keep sending paragraphs to people committed to misunderstanding you. You keep trying to prove your value to people who benefit from pretending they cannot see it. But tonight I came to remind you of something. Your value does not decrease because someone lacks the character to recognize it. Listen carefully. Toxic people study your tolerance more than your words. They watch what you allow. They pay attention to what you forgive. They notice how many times they can cross the line before you finally say enough. And if there is no consequence, disrespect becomes a habit. That is why one powerful decision changes everything. The moment you stop negotiating your dignity, toxic people begin to lose their power. Oh, they may not like it. They may become angry. They may call you cold. They may call you arrogant. They may say you changed. But let me tell you why they say that. Because the version of you they loved most was the version they could control. The moment you stand tall, speak clearly, and protect your peace, suddenly you become difficult. Isn't that strange? When you stayed quiet while they hurt you, you were sweet. When you tolerated disrespect, you were understanding. When you abandoned yourself to keep everyone comfortable, you were amazing. But the moment you say, no more, now you have an attitude. No, my friends, that is not attitude. That is self-respect waking up after years of exhaustion. And once self-respect wakes up, your life begins to change. Because confidence is not loud. Confidence is not cruelty. Confidence is not revenge. Confidence is the calm decision that your peace is no longer available for abuse. Do you know what truly confuses toxic people? Not your anger. Not your tears, not your arguments, your absence, your emotional withdrawal from chaos, your refusal to react, your decision to stop chasing explanations from people who enjoy giving confusion. That changes everything. See, toxic people survive on reaction. They survive on access. They survive on emotional control. But when you become emotionally disciplined, they begin to lose their influence over you. And some of you need to hear this tonight. Every battle does not deserve your energy. Oh, I know you want to explain yourself. I know you want them to finally understand your heart. I know you want fairness. But some people understand you perfectly. They just do not care. And wisdom is learning the difference. Stop exhausting yourself trying to heal people committed to remaining harmful. You cannot love disrespect out of someone. You cannot sacrifice enough to make a selfish person grateful. You cannot bleed enough to make cruel people gentle. People change when they choose to change. And until then, your responsibility is not saving them. Your responsibility is protecting yourself. That truth will set you free. Now listen to me carefully. There is a dangerous habit many good people have. You give endless chances because you remember the good moments. You keep saying, maybe they're stressed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they'll change. But how many times must someone show you who they are before you believe them? Patterns matter. One mistake is human. Repeated disrespect is a choice. And when somebody repeatedly humiliates you, ignores your boundaries, manipulates your emotions, or drains your spirit, you must stop calling it love that is not love. Love does not leave you constantly anxious. Love does not make you afraid to speak. Love does not punish you for having feelings. Love does not enjoy your suffering. Real love protects. Real love listens. Real love respects. Anything else is emotional poison wearing a familiar face. Some of the hardest lessons in life come wrapped in people you never expected to hurt you. Friends, family, partners, people you prayed for, people you defended, people you sacrificed for, and when they wound you, the pain cuts deeper because betrayal from strangers is painful, but betrayal from people you trusted feels like losing a piece of your identity. But hear me tonight, their inability to value you is not proof that you are worthless. Sometimes people mistreat you because they are disturbed by your light. Your confidence reminds them of their insecurity. Your kindness exposes their bitterness. Your growth confronts their stagnation. And instead of rising higher, they try to pull you lower. Do not shrink to make wounded people comfortable. I said do not shrink. Stop apologizing for your standards. Stop apologizing for your boundaries. Stop apologizing for expecting respect. You are not difficult for wanting honesty. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for walking away from constant disrespect. Sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Because every minute spent begging toxic people to value you is a minute stolen from the life you deserve. And I know leaving is not easy. Sometimes you become attached to potential. Sometimes you stay because of history. Sometimes you stay because loneliness scares you. But loneliness is not the greatest tragedy in life. The greatest tragedy is losing yourself while trying to hold on to people who are committed to hurting you. There are people sitting in this world right now who no longer recognize themselves because they spent years abandoning their truth to maintain toxic relationships. They became quieter, smaller, fearful, emotionally exhausted. Not because they were weak, but because prolonged disrespect slowly erodes the spirit. That is why protecting your peace is not selfish, it is survival. And tonight I need somebody to understand this deeply. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate repeatedly. Oh yes, if you keep accepting lies, lies continue. If you keep accepting insults, insults grow stronger. If you keep accepting manipulation, manipulation becomes normal. But the moment you stand firm, something shifts, not only in them, in you, because boundaries do not just protect your peace. They rebuild your identity. Every time you say, I deserve better. Your soul grows stronger. Every time you walk away from disrespect, your confidence returns. Every time you refuse to beg for basic decency, your dignity heals. And healing matters. Because many of you have spent so long surviving toxic environments that peace feels unfamiliar. You became accustomed to chaos, accustomed to inconsistency, accustomed to emotional pain. And when healthy love finally appears, you question it because calmness feels strange after years of emotional warfare. But hear me carefully. You were not born to live in survival mode. You were born to thrive, to laugh freely, to rest peacefully, to love without fear, to exist without constantly defending your worth. And the moment you understand that, toxic people lose access to the deepest parts of you. Now let me tell you something powerful. Silence can be stronger than confrontation. Some people do not deserve explanation. Some people deserve distance. Yes, distant is powerful. Distant reveals truth. Distant exposes intentions. Distant protects your energy. And sometimes the greatest revenge is not proving someone wrong. It is living so peacefully that their chaos can no longer reach you. That kind of peace terrifies toxic people, because toxic people expect you to chase them. They expect emotional reactions. They expect access to your attention. But when you become emotionally grounded, you become untouchable. Not cold, not heartless, untouchable. There is a difference. You stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop defending yourself against false accusations. You stop explaining your boundaries to those determined to violate them. And suddenly your spirit becomes lighter. Do you know why? because your energy is no longer leaking into battles that cannot heal you. Some people are addicted to conflict. Some people feel powerful when they provoke pain. Some people cannot function unless they are controlling emotions around them. Do not become their source of emotional entertainment. Protect your spirit. I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. A person who truly respects you will never require you to destroy yourself to keep them comfortable. Never. Healthy relationships do not demand your silence. Healthy relationships do not punish honesty. Healthy relationships do not make you fear abandonment every time you express your needs. And if someone only values you when you are suffering quietly, they do not love you. They love your obedience. That truth may hurt, but it will also free you. Now let me speak to the people who have been called too sensitive. You are not too sensitive. You are finally noticing what your soul has been trying to warn you about for years. Pain is information. Discomfort is information. Exhaustion is information. When every interaction leaves you emotionally drained, pay attention. Your body recognizes danger before your mind accepts it. Stop ignoring red flags because you are lonely. Stop ignoring disrespect because you are hopeful. Stop ignoring manipulation because you fear starting over. Starting over may be painful, but staying where you are constantly dishonored is far more destructive. And hear me when I say this. You do not need everybody to understand your decision to protect your peace. Some people will criticize your boundaries because they benefited from your lack of them. Let them talk. People who truly love you will never punish you for growing stronger. The right people will respect your limits. The right people will communicate honestly. The right people will value your presence instead of testing your endurance. And until those people arrive, learn to become enough for yourself. Learn to enjoy your own company. Learn to trust your own instincts. Learn to stop chasing approval from people who are emotionally incapable of giving healthy love. Because the moment you stop seeking validation from toxic people, you become dangerous to manipulation. You stop dancing for acceptance. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking. You stop begging. And that changes your entire life. Some of you have spent years trying to be chosen by people who were never qualified to define your worth in the first place. Tonight is the night you stop auditioning for respect. Respect is not something you beg for. It is something you require, and if somebody repeatedly refuses to give it, your response should not be desperation. Your response should be distance. Now I know somebody listening tonight is tired of forgiving, tired of hoping, tired of carrying relationships alone, tired of pretending disrespect does not hurt. I see you, but do not let exhaustion convince you that you deserve poor treatment. You deserve peace. You deserve honesty. You deserve kindness. You deserve reciprocity. And if someone cannot offer those things consistently, you must stop handing them unlimited access to your heart. Access is earned. I want everybody listening to remember this sentence. Not everybody deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people are meant to teach you lessons, not accompany your journey forever. And maturity is realizing that history with someone does not guarantee a future with them. You can love people and still outgrow them. You can care about people and still choose distance. You can forgive people and still refuse to reconnect. Forgiveness does not require foolishness. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, I wish you well, but you no longer have access to me. That sentence saves lives. Because peace begins where constant disrespect ends. And tonight, I hope you finally understand that your life becomes better the moment you stop trying to convince toxic people to become healthy. That is not your assignment. Your assignment is to become whole again, to reconnect with your joy, to rebuild your confidence, to protect your spirit, to remember your worth. And let me tell you something beautiful before I leave you tonight. The moment you stop tolerating disrespect, your entire world begins to reorganize itself. Your standards rise, your mind clears, your confidence deepens, your relationships improve. Why? Because when you finally honor yourself, you stop attracting people who feed on self-abandonment. You stop settling for crumbs. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop confusing chaos with passion. And for the first time in a long time, you breathe differently, freely, peacefully, without fear. That is power, not revenge, not screaming, not bitterness. Peace, a peaceful soul, is one of the most powerful things on earth, because nobody can manipulate a person who finally knows their worth. So tonight, walk away from what keeps dishonoring your spirit. Walk away from conversations that drain your soul. Walk away from people who only remember your value when they fear losing access to you. And do not walk away in anger. Walk away in clarity. Walk away knowing you finally chose yourself. Because the moment you do this once, truly, completely, unapologetically, toxic people will never disrespect you the same way again. Not because they suddenly became better people, but because they finally realized you are no longer willing to abandon yourself for their comfort. And that, my friends, is where your freedom begins. There are people in this world who survive by making others doubt themselves. They study your fears, they study your emotions, they study your reactions. And once they discover what weakens your spirit, they begin to use it like a weapon. They manipulate your kindness. They manipulate your guilt. They manipulate your love. They manipulate your desire to keep peace. And before you realize what has happened, you are no longer living freely. You are walking carefully around people who should have been protecting your heart instead of controlling it. Manipulation rarely begins loudly. It begins quietly, softly, slowly. It hides itself inside charm, attention, affection, and false understanding. A manipulative person does not immediately reveal their intentions, because control works best when trust comes first. They make you feel chosen before they make you feel trapped. They make you feel important before they make you feel small. And many people do not recognize manipulations until they have already sacrificed pieces of themselves trying to keep someone else satisfied. But confidence changes everything. Confidence destroys manipulation because confidence removes the fear that manipulators depend on. The moment you truly know your worth, emotional control begins to lose its power over you. When you stop needing constant approval, manipulative people lose access to your emotions. When you stop fearing abandonment, toxic people lose the ability to threaten your peace. When you finally trust yourself, confusion no longer controls your decisions. Manipulators survive through insecurity. They need you uncertain. They need you doubting yourself. They need you emotionally dependent on their opinions, because a confident person becomes difficult to control. A confident person asks questions. A confident person notices patterns. A confident person refuses to shrink just to make others comfortable. That is why some people become uncomfortable when you begin healing. Your growth interrupts their control. Your confidence challenges the version of you they benefited from. Suddenly you are no longer apologizing for your feelings. Suddenly you are no longer begging to be understood. Suddenly you are no longer accepting behavior that once destroyed your peace in silence. And toxic people notice that change immediately. They notice when you stop over-explaining yourself. They notice when you stop chasing. They notice when you stop reacting emotionally to every provocation. They notice when your boundaries become stronger than your fear of losing them, because manipulation only works when fear is stronger than self-respect. Many people think manipulation only exists in romantic relationships, but manipulation can exist anywhere. In friendships, in families, in workplaces, in conversations that slowly drain your confidence until you begin questioning your own instincts. Some people manipulate with guilt. Some manipulate with anger. Some manipulate with silence. Some manipulate with fake kindness. Some manipulate by constantly making themselves the victim, no matter how much pain they cause others. And one of the most dangerous things about manipulation is that good people often excuse it for too long. You say, "They're just hurting. They don't mean it. They've been through a lot. They love me deep down." But pain does not excuse cruelty. Trauma does not excuse emotional abuse. Difficult experiences do not give anyone permission to control another person's mind, confidence, or peace. A manipulator wants access without accountability. They want forgiveness without change. They want loyalty while giving disrespect. They want understanding while refusing honesty. And if you are not careful, you can spend years trying to prove your value to people who secretly benefit from your insecurity. That is why confidence matters so deeply. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is not pride. Confidence is not believing you are better than others. Confidence is knowing that your dignity is not negotiable. It is the quiet understanding that you deserve honesty, you deserve respect, you deserve peace, you deserve relationships that do not require emotional suffering in order to survive. And once you believe that deeply, manipulation becomes easier to recognize. You stop ignoring red flags because someone is attractive. You stop excusing lies because someone is charming. You stop abandoning your instincts because someone makes you feel guilty for having boundaries. Confidence teaches you to trust what you feel. And let me tell you something powerful. Manipulators fear emotionally grounded people. They fear people who remain calm under pressure. They fear people who are not desperate for validation. They fear people who can walk away without needing revenge. They fear people who no longer need permission to protect their peace, because manipulation depends on emotional imbalance. The manipulator wants you anxious while they remain calm. They want you confused while they remain in control. They want you constantly proving your loyalty while they give the bare minimum in return. But confidence changes the entire dynamic. The moment you stop trying to convince someone to treat you properly, you reclaim your power. The moment you stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you, you become stronger emotionally. The moment you realize that not everybody deserves unlimited access to your heart, your life begins to change. And many people do not understand how deeply manipulation can damage the spirit over time. It slowly teaches you to distrust yourself. It makes you question your memory, your emotions, your intuition, your standards. After enough manipulation, a person can begin apologizing for things that were never their fault. They become afraid to speak honestly because every conversation turns into conflict, guilt, or emotional punishment. That is emotional exhaustion. And the saddest part is that many people living under manipulation do not even recognize how unhappy they have become. They become so accustomed to walking on eggshells that anxiety feels normal. They become so used to emotional inconsistency that peace begins to feel unfamiliar. But healthy love does not leave you constantly fearful. Healthy communication does not require manipulation. Healthy relationships do not demand that one person loses themselves so another person can feel powerful. Manipulators often test your boundaries in small ways first. They interrupt you, dismiss your emotions, twist your words, minimize your pain. They slowly train you to silence yourself. And if you tolerate it repeatedly, the disrespect grows stronger over time, because people often continue behavior that produces no consequences. That is why boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are self-respect in action. A confident person understands that protecting peace is not selfish. It is necessary for emotional survival. You cannot constantly pour love into people who intentionally drain your spirit and expect to remain emotionally healthy. And hear this clearly. Confidence grows every time you stop betraying yourself. Every time you say no when your soul is exhausted, confidence grows. Every time you walk away from disrespect, confidence grows. Every time you stop begging for honesty from dishonest people, confidence grows. Every time you trust your instincts instead of ignoring them, confidence grows. Confidence is built through self-honoring decisions. Manipulative people often become angry when they lose emotional control over someone. Suddenly, they accuse you of changing. They say you are cold, difficult, selfish. But what they truly mean is that your boundaries no longer benefit them. A manipulator rarely complains when you are sacrificing yourself for their comfort. They only complain when you stop. That truth alone opens many eyes. Some people only appreciate your kindness when it requires your suffering. Some people only enjoy your presence when you tolerate disrespect silently. Some people only call you loving when you abandon yourself to maintain their control. But real love never demands self-destruction. Real love communicates honestly. Real love respects emotional safety. Real love values your humanity instead of exploiting your compassion. And once confidence enters your life, your standards rise naturally. You stop tolerating inconsistency. You stop glorifying emotional chaos. You stop romanticizing suffering. You stop chasing people who enjoy making you uncertain, because emotionally healthy people do not need games to feel powerful. Manipulation thrives in confusion. Confidence thrives in clarity. Manipulators hate clarity. They hate direct communication. They hate strong boundaries. They hate emotional independence. Because clarity exposes behavior that confusion once protected, and many people fear becoming confident because they worry confidence will make them harsh. But true confidence does not create cruelty. It creates discernment. You begin noticing energy differently. You begin recognizing dishonesty faster. You begin understanding that not every connection deserves your emotional investment. That awareness protects your spirit. One of the strongest forms of confidence is emotional attachment from unhealthy validation. The moment you stop needing toxic people to approve of you, manipulation weakens dramatically. Because now they cannot control your emotions with praise. They cannot control your actions with guilt. They cannot control your choices with fear. You become emotionally free, and freedom changes everything. Suddenly, you stop arguing endlessly with people determined to misunderstand you. You stop defending yourself against every accusation. You stop explaining boundaries to people committed to violating them. You begin choosing peace over performance. That kind of emotional maturity destroys manipulation completely. There are people who spend years trapped in unhealthy cycles because they confuse attachment with love. They believe intensity means connection. They believe anxiety means passion. They believe emotional instability means depth. But love should not feel like emotional warfare every day. You should not constantly fear losing someone in order to feel connected to them. You should not feel emotionally punished for expressing your needs. You should not feel exhausted after every interaction. A manipulative environment trains people to normalize emotional pain. Confidence breaks that conditioning. Confidence reminds you that peace is not boring. Consistency is not weakness. Healthy communication is not unrealistic. And perhaps one of the greatest signs of confidence is the ability to walk away without needing revenge. Manipulators expect emotional chaos. They expect dramatic reactions. They expect you to lose yourself trying to prove your pain. But confidence moves differently. Confidence says, I see the behavior clearly. I refuse to participate. I choose myself. And then it walks away peacefully. That kind of strength unsettles manipulative people because they survive on emotional access. When you remove your energy from toxic cycles, their control begins collapsing. Some people never imagined you would leave. They believed your love would keep tolerating everything. They believed your empathy would keep forgiving endlessly. They believed your fear of loneliness would keep you available, no matter how poorly they behaved. But confidence changes your relationship with loneliness. You realize loneliness is temporary. Self-betrayal is destructive. And once you understand that, you stop settling for relationships that require emotional suffering just to survive. Confidence teaches you that being alone is far less painful than constantly feeling disrespected. It teaches you that protecting your peace matters more than preserving unhealthy attachments. It teaches you that your spirit deserves environments where honesty, kindness, and emotional safety exist naturally. Manipulators often target deeply compassionate people because compassionate people naturally try to understand others. They give second chances, third chances, endless chances. They look for good intentions even inside harmful behavior. But confidence teaches compassionate people something essential. Understanding someone's pain does not require tolerating their abuse. You can empathize with someone and still refuse access to your life. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can care about someone while recognizing they are emotionally unsafe. That balance is wisdom, and wisdom protects confidence. A confident person does not waste energy trying to fix people committed to unhealthy behavior. They understand that real change requires accountability, not excuses. Manipulators avoid accountability because accountability threatens control. That is why manipulative people often redirect blame constantly. Everything becomes your fault. Your reaction becomes the focus instead of their behavior. Your pain becomes too dramatic. Your boundaries become selfish. And if you are emotionally exhausted enough, you may begin believing those lies. That is why rebuilding confidence matters so deeply. Confidence reconnects you to truth. It reminds you that your emotions matter. Your instincts matter. Your boundaries matter. Your peace matters. And once you truly believe that, manipulation loses its emotional grip. There is incredible power in no longer needing toxic people to understand your worth. Because some people will never validate you honestly. Their inability to value you comes from their own emotional limitations, not your lack of value. A manipulator benefits when you keep doubting yourself. But confidence interrupts that cycle. You stop seeking approval from emotionally unavailable people. You stop begging for consistency from inconsistent people. You stop shrinking to avoid conflict. And suddenly your entire energy changes. You speak differently. You walk differently. You think differently. Because confidence is not just external. It transforms your inner world completely. You begin protecting your mental space carefully. You begin noticing who drains your spirit. You begin understanding that not everyone deserves unlimited emotional access to you, and that awareness creates emotional freedom. Some people fear losing relationships when they become more confident. But the truth is this: confidence does not destroy healthy relationships. It destroys unhealthy dynamics. Healthy people respect your growth. Healthy people celebrate your healing. Healthy people do not fear your boundaries because their intentions are honest. Only manipulative people become threatened when you stop tolerating disrespect. And many people need to understand this clearly. You do not owe endless emotional access to people who repeatedly damage your peace. Love does not require permanent self-sacrifice. Kindness does not require self-destruction. Compassion does not require emotional imprisonment. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to leave environments that constantly wound your spirit. You are allowed to protect your mind from manipulation. You are allowed to stop explaining your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. That is not weakness. That is emotional intelligence. Confidence destroys manipulation because confidence removes desperation. And desperation is what manipulators feed on most. The desperate fear abandonment. The desperate tolerate disrespect. The desperate ignore dishonesty because they fear losing connection. But confidence says, if honesty disappears, I will survive. If respect disappears, I will leave. If peace disappears, I will choose myself. That mindset changes everything because now your decisions are no longer controlled by fear. And fear is the foundation of manipulation. Some of the most powerful people in the world are not loud. They are emotionally stable. They do not panic when people withdraw affection manipulatively. They do not chase people who create confusion intentionally. They do not beg for love from people incapable of giving it healthily. They remain grounded. That emotional grounding creates peace. And peace creates clarity. And clarity destroys manipulation. Because manipulation survives best in emotional chaos. Confidence allows you to pause before reacting, to observe patterns calmly, to trust your intuition without needing outside validation. That emotional discipline becomes protection, and perhaps one of the greatest transformations confidence creates is this: you stop viewing rejection as proof of unworthiness. Sometimes toxic people reject you because they cannot control you anymore. Sometimes manipulative people distance themselves because your boundaries expose their behavior. Sometimes losing unhealthy connections is not punishment. It is protection. Confidence allows you to understand that. It allows you to stop chasing people who only valued the version of you that lacked boundaries. It allows you to stop mourning relationships that required your emotional suffering to survive. And slowly, your life becomes lighter, your mind becomes quieter, your spirit becomes calmer, your relationships become healthier. Because confidence filters out manipulation naturally. You no longer entertain endless emotional games. You no longer confuse inconsistency with excitement. You no longer stay where your soul feels unsafe. You begin choosing environments where honesty feels normal, where communication feels peaceful, where love does not require fear in order to exist. And once you experience that kind of emotional safety, you realize how exhausting manipulation truly was. You realize how much energy you wasted overthinking conversations. You realize how often you blamed yourself unfairly. You realize how frequently you abandoned your instincts trying to preserve toxic connections. But confidence restores your relationship with yourself, and that may be the most important victory of all. Because when you trust yourself again, manipulation loses its doorway into your mind.